Greetings from Castle Goring, from Nikki, Aurora, and from me. Well, today is a momentous day. The greatest of all fundraisers of all time. The most self-sacrificing veteran of all time. The man with the most fallen chess pieces to his name. The truly modest and wonderful and deserving Harry is going to be given an award for bravery. I don't think so. For a contribution through sport to veterans in the United States of America, notwithstanding the fact that Invictus Games has nothing whatsoever to do with the Warrior Games in the United States of America, save that the Warrior Games were the inspiration for Invictus. Copycat. Well, I know Harry has been called something whipped that is related to cats, but Aurora says, meow, meow. And I am going to plunge in with what Jessie Fry says. I'm American and I miss Margaret Thatcher. Now, I have actually quoted this because it's quite extraordinary. In the last 3 or 4 days, I have had several people express the same sentiment, which to me is actually uncanny. Possibly, of course, because of the results of the British and the French elections, and possibly because they are worried about the outcome of the American elections, all of which I think might be called rightly so. But, you know, Mrs. Thatcher was really, there's a saying, a prophet is not without praise save in his own country. And I have to say, I am one of those who was guilty of not giving Mrs. Thatcher the credit that was due to her. Partly because I was surrounded by people who denigrated her and who were far lesser people than she was, and were very happy to put her down to boost themselves, and did not understand that she was boosting everybody, not only the little man, but in the process of boosting the little man, she was boosting the middle classes and even the upper classes. You could say with Mrs. Thatcher, it was boosting upwards from the necessities of life, and everybody benefited. I have to say, I did not see it at the time, and I throw my hands up and say, mea culpa. We have at least one conviction politician in this country. Whether one conviction politician is ever capable of carrying a whole party, much less a movement or a country, is a moot point. But it is a starting point. And let us see what the next 6 years give. Now, we're going to get into the rather more entertaining stuff. Oh dear, oh dear. Mr. Piggles says, honk, 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 honk. And Mr. Piggles says, Doria, can you bring me some grass? And then we have our favourite flying pig. That's going to be diving in and diving out and diving around the place. So, without further ado, I am going to read out what Paul Donham has to say. And for those of you who don't want to have fun, today is fun. I think we deserve it. Paul Tillman's widow, Marie Tillman, is remarried. She is the chair of the Pat Tillman Award and gets a 6-figure salary, as does her husband, who also gets a 6-figure salary. Around 74% of all donations goes on salaries. Marie Tillman once worked for ESPN in marketing. Marketing. My experience of people in marketing has not always, but frequently been that they are very adept at sleights of hand. That's been my experience, but don't let me interrupt the question. She is also involved in a better up, as is her husband. I feel a head cold coming on. Serena Williams' husband, Alexis Ohanian, is invested in Better Up. No. All these hands scratching each other's backs. Oh dear. Harry is the CIO. I think that's Chief Impact Officer, whatever that means, of Better Up, who have a deal with Netflix. No. Wheels within wheels. Harry and Meghan have a deal with Netflix, who have a deal with Invictus Games. Invictus Games have a deal with Better Up. Serena Williams, who is presenting the award to Harry, is also connected to Better Up and is a personal friend of Meghan and Harry. Well, my understanding is that Serena Williams is not quite as close to Meghan as Meghan would like everybody to believe, but close enough where their interests are concerned to rub along together. Oh, solidarity is such a wonderful thing when the glue is filthy lucre. Yes, wheels within wheels, interconnectedness, one person facilitating another. It's called the Old Boys Network. Now, why is it that I was told that Meghan frowns on anything traditional? And what could be more traditional than the Old Boys Network? The New People's Network. It's not only boys, it's girls. Also, may I make the point, Marie Tillman doesn't exist any longer. She is Marie Shenton, not Marie Tillman. She may still exploit, my mouth slipped, I meant to say. She may avail herself of her first husband's name. I should never and would never imply that she was exploiting the name and memory of a noble person such as her ex-husband. No. My mouth slipped. It's amazing what happens after one has had a lunch with a little bit of champagne, the mouth slips. Liesl Strauss says, if true, it is shameful that Marie Stenton, and may I say, I mispronounced the name the other day and said Stenton instead of Shenton, and for that I stand corrected. To those who corrected me and to those whom I have misled, I apologize. And thank you, Liesl Strauss, for not correcting me. But it's okay, you could have corrected me. But anyway, as King George VI said to the statesman, well, he didn't say it actually, he did it, to the statesman who picked up his water bowl and drank from it. King George VI did the same thing. It's so nice when people are gracious about one's errors. But anyway, it is shameful that Marie Shenton is profiting of her late husband's past legacy. Isn't it just? She had no children with him and will not know what it feels like to lose a child. Well, she certainly won't, but her mother-in-law, Mary Tillman, certainly knows. Also, may I make the point that Pat Tillman was deployed, according to the information I have received, 2 months after their wedding. So they actually were married, save in name, for only 2 months. But they had been teenage sweethearts. So I'm sure the whole thing was rather shattering to her, as it would be to anybody. But isn't it wonderful that she has recovered so well, that she has dusted herself off and gone on to exploit? Oh, sorry, that champagne. Oh, it's just made my tongue do wrong things. Oh. Aurora, Mickey, please come and rescue Motty. Motty's tongue is going in all sorts of directions it shouldn't go in. Yes, as I was saying, isn't it wonderful that she has dusted herself off and so coldly and sorry. I'm just tripping up over my words today. That she has she has arisen above her grief and coated it with the rewards of self-aggrandizement. And both she and her present husband are evidently on over $500,000 a year in salary from a company. Sorry. My tongue is so wicked and misbehaving this afternoon. Charity. It's not a company. It's a charity. I think I confused it because normally people get big salaries from companies that they work in and that the company's doing well. And when the main participants in the charity, or indeed the company, take out practically 100% of the income of the company or charity, it does raise questions, doesn't it? Even with those whose mouth just manages to behave itself on a Thursday afternoon at 4:00. Donna Farapodio says, Harry is awful as his wife. He knew what he did to his loyal, ill grandparents and still did it. They deserve each other. Donna Varapodio, from your mouth to God's ears via my approval. You know, there are some things one simply doesn't do if one has any self-respect, any scruples, a heart. I don't care how addicted you are. There is no excuse for doing certain things. No excuse whatsoever. And the way Harry allowed Meghan to, in my opinion, abuse her position and his grandparents was reprehensible. And believe me, my sentiments are those that are shared by people very close to Harry, or I should say, who are very close to the Harry that existed, but are fairly distant from the Harry that now exists. And it doesn't matter whether she took his hand and led him. He walked in step with her voluntarily. And he didn't do quite as bad as she did, but he hasn't stopped her. He allowed both Prince Philip and the Queen to go to their graves, knowing they were under attack. Their life's work was under attack. Can you imagine these two people who had spent 70 years of their lives dedicated to the British nation and the Commonwealth and racial harmony, went to their graves thinking that Harry had backed up his wife's claim, false claim, of institutional racism within the royal family. Yes, well, is he as bad as she is? Well, let me put it this way. If you're full of the brown stuff from hair downwards, or you're full of it from hair downwards, it's a matter of degree. Rosanna says, Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison and never once complained. Meghan Markle spent 2 years living in Palace and never stopped complaining. Well, isn't that true? And that has been a part of the problem. Because not only did she complain about how hard done by she was, when she was on a clothing allowance that exceeded the collective of every single European and British monarch, princess, and royal duchess. I mean, that's some accomplishment. But you see, one of her sources of dissatisfaction was that she didn't live in a palace. So when you say she spent 2 years living in palaces, she didn't. Her bone of contention from the word go, evidently, was that they were living in Northcote. Of course, William and Catherine had lived in Northcote very happily, without a complaint. And if I recall correctly, they lived in it longer than Meghan and Harry lived in Northcote. But Meghan was very put out. She wanted to live in a palace. She evidently actually wanted to live in Frogmore House, which is where Queen Victoria's mother used to live. That didn't materialise, and she wanted to live, evidently, in Windsor Castle. Well, that's not a palace either, but it's grander than most palaces, so. And Frogmore House is not a palace, but it's on a par with a palace. So those would have satisfied her overweening ambition. She had another problem. She did not want to defer to anybody. She wanted right there in the middle of the action. I mean, well, I'm an equal of Lady Katie and Big Willie. I'm their equal. And as for that old broken down woman, well, I'm her equal too. After all, does she think she owns the word royal? No, she doesn't. I'm as royal as she is. In fact, I'm more royal because I was a star of suits. Well, my understanding is that Meghan thought she could manipulate the Queen into giving her what she wanted, not only in terms of living quarters, but in terms of a promotion upwards from her place as the wife of the spare to parity with the wife of the heir. And of course, had she got that, then she would have wanted to supersede the wife of the heir. And I suppose, had she been given that, she would then have wanted to not be the wife of the person to whom she was married, whence originated her privileges and power, but she was going to want it for herself. Because that sort of personality, there's no such thing as enough. As Harry said, Meghan is capable of anything. She doesn't have boundaries. Oh dear, oh dear. We are seeing yet again what is really going on before our eyes. And wait for later. No matter what they come up with, it's going to be revealing. Clarifying questions says, 1. Tillman Award. 2. Deleted evidence in his trial. These are why these separation stories are abounding. The Harkles are starting rumours to get the press off stories 1 or 2. And 2. Don't fall for it. There is clarifying questions. A lot of truth to what you're saying. Harry and Meghan obfuscate by throwing out several stories. Those with no merit will end up quashing those with merit. The problem is they've done it to such an extent that this really is Wolf, the wolf, the boy who cried wolf. But you're right. These are all deflecting away from the fact that Harry has problems with big problems. Not the least of which is the fact that he has a problem with his status of right of entry and stay in the United States. Now, if Harry is on an A1 status visa, which is the visas that royals have so that they can come and go freely and stay for as long as they like in the United States of America without being residents or citizens. If there is a problem with his right to remain, and remember there are questions being asked through the Heritage Foundation, and it's becoming, shall we say, crucial that they have to protect themselves in case the Bidens do not, well, Joe Biden and Dr. Jill, she'll help him to put up his hand in January and swear in as president again. He needs to justify his special status. All these awards assist in reaffirming the specialness of his status. I actually don't think they are crucial to that element. I really don't. Because I think he's going to get it in any way, if he's going to get it. And if he's going to be deprived of it, which I would find fairly unlikely, just as the courtesy of one ally to another, irrespective of who is in power. He doesn't really need to shore up his special status with accomplishments. If I had a special status visa, which I could have as a public figure, I would need to shore up my application with proof that I was sufficiently topical, current, and deserving of being granted the status. Because with me, it would be partly about accomplishment, or largely about accomplishment. With him, it's totally about status. So I hope that actually clarifies. My own take on it is that this is an awkwardness which, barring a miracle of rectitude, is going to just disappear into the ether. Jessie Fry says, because all of them are in cahoots, Serena, her husband, Marie, Pat's widow, and her current husband, Meghan and Harry, are all on the board of Better Up. It's a money laundering event. No, it's not a money laundering event, Jessie Fry. It's money washing each other's linen so that it comes out a very fresh, very clean, and very entitled. But I wouldn't have gone so far as to say it is a money laundering event. I think that would imply a degree of illegality which this does not possess. It certainly possesses dubious aspects, and it certainly shines a rather too bright light on the farcicality and the vanity of these awards and how they are real vanity projects done for the undeserving, by the undeserving, who only occasionally give to the deserving so that they have maintained the right to give to their buddies. It's called nepotism. It's rank nepotism. What amuses me with all of these wonderfully enlightened and Hollywood types in terms of we're so politically correct is how tremendously old-fashioned vulgar they are. Lynette MacDonald says, "Hello, Lady C. Someone said he was getting banished to Australia and he was going to be controlling Aboriginal affairs." I wonder how many he's going to be happy to control them. If this is true, I don't think it will end well. Australia doesn't want the traitor either. Well, I can well see why you call him a traitor. I would not choose to use that word. I would choose to use other words. But if you use that word, I certainly am not depriving you of your right to do so. And I say all of this for legal reasons. Harry is not going to be banished to Australia. There is no position that Harry could occupy in Australia. He can't be the Governor-General of Australia, and nor can he be the governor of any of the states or provinces or whatever they're called this week in Australia, because Australia is made up of several different states or provinces. I forget which one it's called. Doesn't really matter. You get the picture. It's a sort of federal system as well. And he's not going to be governor or governor-general of anything. Australia, Canada, all those countries have gone way beyond having a royal as a representative. They want their own homegrown citizens occupying those positions. And is he going to be controlling Aboriginal affairs? Well, if he's having an affair with an Aborigine, yeah, he's going to be hopefully, well, maybe she'll be, or whatever is going to be controlling the affair, because Harry looks as if he's very much somebody who is out of control and controlled. So if the dynamic of his relationship with Meghan is anything to go by, it looks as if he would be controlled by an Aboriginal affair, but controlling Aboriginal affairs in general? I don't think so. I mean, what does he know about Aboriginal affairs? He's not even affair with an Aborigine. Unless, of course, Meghan had become an Aborigine today. Because, I mean, do you remember? She was 120% Maltese. Then she was 43% Nigerian. And maybe she's 98% Aborigine at this point. We'll see. We'll see. Do you see how ludicrous it is that they come out with all these silly stories? They bombard the media with stupid stories that Vanity Fair, Harper's Bazaar, People, all the rags in the United States that used to actually be worth reading, and now, I mean, you wouldn't even use them if you ran out of lavatory paper. That's right, you wouldn't. And it's got nothing to do with the texture of the paper. It's the quality of the rubbish on the paper that would be offensive, even to be used as lavatory paper. And this is what they bombard people with on a daily basis. And I don't know why these publications have not begun to twig that people are fed up with the bombardment, because people are. But at the moment, it's topical because he has committed yet another offence in having accepted an award for, well, whatever it is he's supposed to have done, which we all know he never did. Let's leave it at that. Annie Cole says, to copyright the name Lilibet 6 months before Meghan supposedly gave birth is sickening. I once read a quote, be careful of anyone that lies, steals, and is jealous. If someone can lie, they can steal. If they can steal, they can kill. Well, Meghan has so far got several scalps to her credit. She managed to kill off with Harry's connivance, the last weeks of Prince Philip's life, and added insult to injury by the message. Well, he's most likely just faking it, and we're certainly not going to stop moaning and groaning just because he's pretending he's going to die, and then when he dies, one tear left eye. Then, look at what they did to the Queen. So, lie, steal, well, they've certainly stolen the well-being of the harmony. Let's put it that way, actually, better. They've certainly stolen the harmony that before Meghan's advent prevailed in the royal family. And they have killed off their reputations, trying to kill off other people's, including the king's, I think as collateral damage, to really go after Catherine, because Catherine knew what Meghan was from the word go. Take it from me, I was bullied growing up as well. And when you've been bullied as a child, as both Catherine and I were, you can spot a bully a mile off. You may not at first realize consciously that it's a bully, but unconsciously, you know in a way that people who haven't been bullied don't know that you are dealing with somebody you need to be on your guard against. And most of us being kind and giving people the benefit of the doubt and thinking, oh, well, maybe they're in a bad mood, maybe they don't understand, she's a foreigner, but on an atavistic level, you pick up the truth. And it's as the situation devolves and evolves that you have your original instinct confirmed and reconfirmed in spades. But to copyright the name Lilibet shows a degree of calculation that simply ratifies the other observation about Meghan's character. Not only is she a bully, but she is a conniver with it. But my experience is that most bullies connive. So it's not so surprising. But she certainly has foresight. But foresight to manipulate and achieve what her immediate objective is, but she's too dumb to see the big picture. She really, on some level, is extremely stupid. Thicker than two bricks. Lots of wiliness, lots of synapses in the brain going, but really slightly missing. Let me put it this way. My understanding is that Catherine and William didn't want Harry and Meghan living near them or their children because they didn't know what they would be capable of doing. And they didn't want to have to keep their guard up. They wanted Harry and Meghan moved off the Windsor Great Park estate, as indeed happened. And she wanted to live in Frogmore House or Windsor Castle. Well, stay tuned, because I think later on this evening we're gonna have a feast in terms of what is going to happen with the Pat Tillman Award. And on that note, I will say thank you very much for listening. I hope this has been of some interest to you. If it has, please keep your questions and comments coming in so I will know what you would like us to be addressing. Thank you so much. Take good care. Godspeed. And if you have truly enjoyed this, would you care to like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell, and a bientôt.